The revolution of rest, why Black women's wellness is non-negotiable. Welcome to the Black CEO Podcast, where we're about to embark on a journey that will challenge everything you thought you knew about self-care, success, and what it truly means to thrive as a Black woman in today's world. Today, we're diving deep into a conversation that's long overdue, inspired by the groundbreaking insights of LeAnne Dolce, a visionary wellness advocate, author, and champion for Black women's holistic health. LeAnne's work has been nothing short of revolutionary, sparking a movement that's redefining what it means to prioritize ourselves in a world that often demands our constant sacrifice. Her impact extends far beyond individual lives. She's reshaping entire communities by empowering Black women to reclaim their right to rest, joy, and unapologetic self-care. Now, let me ask you a question that might make you uncomfortable. When was the last time you truly rested without feeling guilty? Take a moment. Really think about it. If you're like most Black women I know, you're probably struggling to remember. And that right there is the heart of the problem we're tackling today. For generations, we've been force-fed this toxic idea that self-care is selfish, indulgent, or luxury we can't afford. We've been told that our strength lies in our ability to endure, to sacrifice, to put everyone else's needs before our own. But today, we're calling bullshit on that notion. This belief isn't just misguided, it's dangerous. It's rooted in a complex web of cultural expectations, historical trauma, and societal pressures that have convinced Black women that our worth is tied to our productivity and our ability to care for others at the expense of ourselves. Let's break this down. The myth of the invincible Black woman isn't just a stereotype. It's a burden that's literally killing us. We've internalized this idea that we must always be resilient, always be strong, always be the rock for everyone else. But here's the truth bomb LeAnne dropped during our conversation. Strength doesn't mean invincibility. It doesn't mean we don't need rest, care, or support. In fact, true strength lies in recognizing when we need to pause, when we need to refill our own cups. Think about it. How many of us have pushed through exhaustion, ignored our body's cries for rest, or dismissed our emotional needs because we felt we had no choice? How many of us have worn our ability to handle it all as a badge of honor, even as we're crumbling inside? This isn't strength. It's slow suicide. The consequences of this mindset are devastating, and they extend far beyond just feeling tired. We're talking about serious physical and mental health challenges. Black women are disproportionately affected by conditions like hypertension, heart disease, and diabetes, all of which are exacerbated by chronic stress and lack of self-care. Our mental health suffers too, with many of us battling anxiety and depression in silence because we've been taught that seeking help is a sign of weakness. But here's where LeAnne's insights really shook me. Wellness isn't something to squeeze into the margins of your life when you find time. For Black women, wellness is a revolutionary act. It's a declaration of our worth, a reclaiming of our right to thrive, not just survive. When we prioritize our well-being, we're not just taking care of ourselves. We're dismantling generations of oppressive beliefs that have told us we don't deserve to rest, to feel joy, to put ourselves first. Let that sink in for a moment. Your self-care isn't selfish. It's survival. It's resistance. In a world that often tells Black women they must earn rest or happiness. Redefining wellness as a necessity is nothing short of revolutionary. It's not just about bubble baths and spa days, though those are nice. It's about setting boundaries without guilt, saying no to obligations that drain you, prioritizing your mental health, and simply breathing without apologizing for needing space. Now, let's talk about the ripple effect of neglecting self-care, because this isn't just about us as individuals. When we run ourselves into the ground, we're not just hurting ourselves. We're perpetuating cycles of burnout and trauma that affect our families, our communities, and future generations. Many of us are breaking cycles of trauma and scarcity that stretch back generations. But when we neglect our own well-being, we risk passing on the very patterns we're trying to break. On the flip side, when we embrace wellness and self-prioritization, we set a powerful example. We show our daughters, nieces, mentees, and every Black woman watching us that they don't have to choose between being whole and being helpful. We demonstrate that it's possible to honor our cultural values of community and care while also honoring ourselves. I know many of you feel a deep cultural responsibility to be the caretakers, the nurturers,
the anchors of your communities. And that role is sacred, but it must not come at the expense of your own health and happiness. The assumption that prioritizing yourself means betraying your community is a false dichotomy that needs to be challenged. Instead, we need to reframe our thinking. When I care for myself, I am better equipped to care for my community. Let's look at some hard facts because the science backs this up. Chronic stress, which is all too common among Black women carrying that superwoman cape, leads to a host of adverse health outcomes. We're talking increased risk of cardiovascular disease, compromised immune function, and accelerated aging. A study published in the Journal of the American Heart Association found that Black women who reported high levels of stress were 49% more likely to have cardiovascular issues compared to those with lower stress levels. But here's the good news. Research also shows that prioritizing self-care can literally save our lives. A 2022 study in the American Journal of Health Promotion found that Black women who engaged in mindfulness-based stress reduction techniques like meditation or yoga reported lower blood pressure, improved mood, and better sleep quality. These aren't just feel-good benefits, they're life-saving interventions. And it's not just about physical health. The stigma around mental health in Black communities leaves many women struggling silently with anxiety and depression. But research from the Journal of Black Psychology shows that culturally informed self-care practices can significantly reduce stress levels and improve overall mental well-being. This isn't just about feeling better, it's about breaking the cycle of intergenerational trauma and creating a new narrative of wellness for Black women. Now, let's shift gears and talk about the economic impact of self-care. Because I know some of you are thinking, that's great, but I can't afford to take time for myself. Here's the truth, you can't afford not to. Burnout and chronic stress cost industries billions annually in lost productivity, turnover, and healthcare expenses. On an individual level, neglecting your well-being can lead to career stagnation, strained relationships, and significant financial setbacks due to health issues. Fresh evidence from Harvard Business Review demonstrates that leaders, particularly women of color, who prioritize self-care are more effective, resilient, and innovative in their roles. Companies that invest in wellness programs tailored to the needs of Black women see higher retention rates, improved team dynamics, and increased overall productivity. This isn't just about feeling good, it's about performing at your peak and achieving sustainable success. So let's flip the script. Self-care isn't a luxury, it's an investment in your future, your career, and your legacy. It's about showing up as your best self in all areas of life, whether that's at home, in your community, or in the boardroom. Now, I want to share a powerful perspective that LeAnne brought up in our conversation. The concept of rest as resistance. This idea, popularized by Tricia Hersey, founder of the NAP Ministry, frames rest as a form of pushback against capitalist white supremacist systems that condition people, especially Black women, to tie their worth to their productivity. Hersey argues that rest isn't just a physical necessity, it's a reparative act, healing generations of overwork and exploitation that Black women have endured. She often says, rest is reparations. That sentiment is particularly powerful for Black women who have been historically overworked, undervalued, and expected to sacrifice their well-being for others. So I want you to ask yourself, what would your life look like if you gave yourself permission to rest without guilt? How would your relationships change if you set boundaries around your time and energy? What dreams could you pursue if you weren't constantly exhausted from taking care of everyone else? The ripple effect of prioritizing self-care extends far beyond our individual lives. A groundbreaking study published in Psychological Science revealed that children of mothers who model self-care are more likely to develop healthy coping mechanisms and emotional regulation skills. For Black women, this is particularly crucial as we often play pivotal roles in raising and influencing the next generation. By prioritizing our well-being, we're not just changing our own lives, we're reshaping the future. We're teaching our children, our communities, and the world that Black women's rest and joy are non-negotiable. We're breaking generational cycles of burnout and showing that it's possible to be strong and take care of ourselves simultaneously. Let me share a story that LeAnne told me about a corporate executive who wore the strong Black woman identity like armor, only to realize it was suffocating her. This woman was always the go-to person, handling work crises and family emergencies while her own needs went unmet. She prided herself on her ability to handle it all until one day her body gave out. Burnout, health issues, and an emotional breakdown forced her to stop. It was in this moment of crisis that she realized the true cost of her superhuman facade. With support and guidance, she began to prioritize her well being, setting boundaries at work and home. She started saying no to extra projects, delegated tasks, and carved out time for rest and self care. The transformation was profound. Not only did her health improve, but she found herself more creative and effective at work. Her relationships deepened as she allowed herself to be vulnerable and ask for help. Most importantly, she felt the sense of peace and joy that had been missing for years. This story illustrates a crucial point. You don't have to wait for a crisis to reclaim your wellness. You can choose yourself now, today, in this moment. So, how do we actually do this? How do we shift from knowing we need to prioritize our well being to actually living it? Here are some practical steps inspired by LeAnne's insights. First, ask yourself, what am I holding on to that's not mine to carry? This simple question can be revolutionary in identifying areas where you're overextending yourself. Maybe it's taking on extra work projects, always being the family problem solver, or never saying no to community obligations. Recognize these patterns and start to release what's not truly yours to bear. Second, set a boundary, just one to start. Pick an area of your life where you've been overextending yourself. It could be at work, with family, or even within your friendships. Set a clear, firm boundary this week and stick to it. It might feel uncomfortable at first, but remember, discomfort is often a sign of growth. Third, create a daily joy ritual. Dedicate 10 minutes every day to something that brings you pure, unadulterated joy. It could be dancing to your favorite song, journaling, taking a walk in nature, or simply sitting in silence with a cup of tea. The key is consistency. Make this non-negotiable time for yourself. Lastly, find your sisterhood. Surround yourself with women who encourage and support your journey toward wellness. This might mean joining a support group, finding an accountability partner, or simply being more intentional about the energy you allow in your circle. Let these women hold you accountable for prioritizing yourself. Now, let's talk about redefining what self-care looks like, because it's not always what the mainstream wellness industry portrays. For Black women, self-care can look like setting and enforcing boundaries with family, friends, and colleagues, saying no without explanation or guilt, prioritizing sleep and rest, even when there's more to be done, seeking therapy or counseling, especially with a culturally competent professional, connecting with your cultural roots through food, music, or spiritual practices, advocating for yourself in healthcare settings, cultivating spaces where you can be your authentic self without code switching. We need to challenge the strong Black woman narrative actively. It's time to create space for Black women to be human, imperfect, vulnerable, and deserving of support. This starts with the messages we tell ourselves. Try incorporating these affirmations into your daily routine. I am allowed to put myself first without explanation or guilt. My strength is not defined by how much I can endure, but by how well I care for myself. Rest is my birthright, not a reward for productivity. I am worthy of care, love, and support simply because I exist. Remember, you're not a mule, you're magic. Stop letting the world or yourself treat you like less. LeAnne emphasized the rise of culturally affirming self-care practices, and this is crucial. Self-care for Black women often differs from mainstream wellness trends. Recent movements are reshaping self-care by incorporating practices that speak directly to our experiences and needs. Community care. Sharing burdens with trusted sisters, relying on collective wisdom, and asking for help are powerful forms of care rooted in African traditions. This might look like sister circles, group meditation sessions, or community gardening projects. Storytelling and healing circles. Spaces where Black women can share their struggles without judgment are becoming more popular and effective for mental health. These spaces affirm that wellness isn't just individual, it's communal. Consider starting or joining a regular gathering where you can speak your truth and hear others. Celebrating joy. Movements like Black Joy emphasize that rest and pleasure are not frivolous, they're resistance. Joy is revolutionary in a world that tries to strip it away. Make time for activities that bring you pure, unadulterated happiness, whether that's dance, art, laughter with friends, or quiet moments in nature. Ancestral healing practices. Reconnecting with traditional healing methods, from herbalism to energy work, can be deeply restorative. Explore practices that resonate with your heritage and beliefs, digital detoxes, and tech boundaries. Given the toll that constant connectivity and exposure to traumatic news can take, setting intentional boundaries with technology is a form of self care. This might mean regular social media fasts or creating tech free zones in your home. As we come to the close of our time together, I want to leave you with this thought. Your wellness is your worship. When you care for yourself, you honor the divine within you. You're not just taking care of a body or a mind, you're preserving a sacred vessel that has the power to change the world. So I challenge you today, right now, to make a commitment to yourself. Release the guilt of putting yourself first. Your rest, your joy, your wellness are non negotiable. When you care for yourself, you change not just your own life, but the lives of everyone around you. Remember, you are not a machine. You are not here to grind yourself into the ground. You are here to thrive, to experience joy, to rest deeply, and to live fully. Your worth is not tied to your productivity or how much you do for others. You are worthy of care and compassion, starting with the care and compassion you give yourself. By choosing wellness, you choose freedom. By choosing rest, you choose life. And in doing so, you give others permission to do the same. You become a beacon of what's possible when Black women prioritize themselves. Let this be your rallying cry. Let this be the moment you decide to drop the cape, to step into your power, not by doing more, but by doing less and honoring yourself first. Let this be the day you declare that your wellness is not selfish, it's sacred. And to every sister out there who feels like the world sees her as unbreakable, but rarely asks if she's okay, hear this. You deserve to be cared for too. You deserve rest. You deserve joy. You deserve peace. And it starts with you giving yourself permission to claim it. So, what will you do differently tomorrow? How will you prioritize your well being in a way you never have before? Will you set that boundary you've been avoiding? Will you finally book that therapy appointment? Will you take a day off just to rest? I want you to make a promise to yourself right now. Speak it out loud. I promise to prioritize my well being not as a luxury, but as a necessity. I promise to rest without guilt, to seek joy without apology, and to love myself fiercely. Now go forth and live that promise. Rest, rejuvenate, and remember, in taking care of yourself, you're not just changing your life. You're changing the world. You're part of a revolution of rest, of self love, of Black women reclaiming their right to thrive. The world is waiting for the magic that only you can bring when you're whole, rested, and filled with joy. So go out there and show them what a well cared for Black woman can do. The revolution starts with you, with your next breath, with your next moment of rest. Embrace it. You're worth it.